Hey everybody, you have the Wunderkind analytics team here to talk about our experience with Google's new data canvas. So my name is Scott Shane. I'm the VP of Data and Analytics at Wunderkind. I've been using BigQuery for about 9 years. I've been at Wunderkind even longer. Excited to talk about our experience with data canvas today.
Hey, and I'm Rachel. I'm a director of data analytics at Wunderkind. I've been here a little over 4 years, and that's also the amount of time I've been using Looker and BigQuery as well.
So Wunderkind is a performance marketing channel that powers one-to-one messaging at unprecedented scale. We work with a lot of large brands, and we send behavioral emails and text messages on their behalf. Chances are you probably have interacted with us at some point. So the analytics team really does everything with data at Wunderkind, especially when it comes to getting value out of data. So we have a fairly large data set in BigQuery. The example that we're using today with Data Canvas is for a machine learning model that our data engineering team put out that scores purchase propensity. So before we get into Data Canvas, I want to start by showing what we have been doing today, which I'm guessing is not that dissimilar from what you've all been doing. We have our BigQuery console here, and up here we just have a bunch of tabs. And so these are various queries through our exploratory effort. And it works to a point unless you're trying to find or reference a previous query. And the side-by-side view usually helps, especially when we are trying to reference a different data set, but does get very challenging. So
for years, we've been begging the BigQuery team for a SQL-style notebook where we could organize a running string of queries, kind of like a running doc, with our thought flow as we're going through these kind of investigations or exploratory analysis to keep things a bit more organized. And what we got from Canvas is actually arguably a bit better.
Yeah. So now rather than a linear format, kind of like a BigQuery notebook or any sort of notebook, what we have is much more of a mental map, or more of a 3D model almost, where we can very spatially iterate through queries. So let me take you through how we've been doing this. Up here on the top, we usually start with the data set. Let me just zoom in a little. So we start with the data set and a preview of that data set. And then over to the side, we might have the same exact data set, but just the schema. So again, very easy to reference. Now, if I navigate down here, I usually start off with some basic questions about the table. Again, this is a purchase propensity table. We have not built this table. This is straight out of our machine learning engineering team. And so we're just trying to get a feel for the table. And what better way to get a feel for the table than also with some visualizations. So already you could see something's maybe not quite right with the table. And I'll pass it over to Rachel to talk about what we do next.
Yeah, and so having the ability to have several different queries side by side allows really easy comparison. Again, now we'd have lots of these untitled tabs kind of flipping back and forth, switching them between split screens, but now it's really easy to compare 2 or more even results side by side in these kind of columns in your canvas. Another thing we do a lot of is taking one query, copying it, and then just modifying it slightly. So up here we can see Scott's first query, we just took it, copied it, put it into the second one, and just filtered only on the propensity category equals highest. And then we can easily see below that from the visualizations that something might be up because this highest category only exists for a portion of the time. And we could do that again with another category and really easy compare these side by side. Another thing that we'll end up doing in these kind of exploratory analysis is reference results from one query and another query as we continue to look into the data. So here we're just grouping the data based on the propensity category in this first query on the left. And now that we see what all the possible categories are, we might then want to sort of pivot on those. So on this next query on the right, we can then take those category labels, reference them from the first query since we didn't know what they were before, and then plug them into this next query. Again, easy to see side by side.
Yep, exactly. And so already at this point, we've learned so much about this table, not just about how the data changes per day, but what the data is really saying. And so let's say we've iterated a couple more times and eventually we've asked enough high-level questions. It's time to ask some low-level questions. And so we want to start looking at data at the user level, which is always important, or the hit level. So this query is now a combination of some previous queries. All of the SQL is pretty much ripped out of previous tiles. Again, it's so easy to just kind of scroll over, take what you want, and scroll back. And what I'm doing is so that's left over, I'm just looking at users that show up on this table more than once. And so I end up with 4 million results, which is a little too much to eyeball, but still nice to see. And so what I can do now with these 4 million results, which I can't do so easily in the native BigQuery UI, is I can query these results. Don't think there's an easy way to query a result set. And so what you can see is it's taken this temp table over here, and I actually didn't even have to write the query. I just kind of asked it a pretty basic prompt to show me the frequency of row count. And so I can see of the users that show up more than once on this propensity model, how many of those users show up 100 times, over 100 times, or 338 times. And then again, really easy to take this result, go back up here, filter this query, and start to learn a little more about an individual user on this table. If I wanted to do this today, what I would probably do is turn this query into a CTE or a subquery. Usually the only way to do that is kind of by destroying this query in the first place, which makes it harder to reuse this query, or it would copy and paste it. So yeah, Data Canvas has really been working for us. And one last thing I want to say is we find the focus really easy. It's easy to get in the zone and be really zoomed in and focused on this query. It's also really easy to context switch because you still have this spatial awareness of all these other queries side by side. You really don't lose focus the same way that you lose focus when you switch tabs. So pass it back to Rachel to round us off.
Yep. And so lastly, the great thing about all of this is that you can save, share, and reuse the whole canvas. So again, in our current world of multiple tabs, not really easy or effective to save a ton of untitled tabs or share that and convey to a teammate the flow of your thought, how you kind of got to these like queries that are similar iterations. But here it's all laid out and someone else could kind of pick this up, look at it, and get a sense of what you are looking into. So we really love that feature.
Yeah, so while we've been loving Data Canvas, I will admit it's no replacement for a quick and punchy query. For that, we would just come to the classic UI. But for any sort of investigation or exploratory exercise that you know is going to result in multiple queries, there really is no replacement. It saved us so much time and mental capacity. So we've been using it for a couple of months, and it's improved so much in that short amount of time. We're so excited to see the BigQuery team keep developing and innovating with this new Canvas product. So thank you, BigQuery team, and have a great time at Next, everybody.